Hey guys, what is up? It is your favorite dog YouTuber, Cosmic Retriever, and this video is sort of going to be in line with the Therian signs, how I knew I was a Therian. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I watched a lot of animal movies, and there's actually too many of them to list. Like, if I were to go through all of the talking animal movies, whether they were animated or not, that I watched, that would just make this video too long. I'm trying to make this video not too long, but at the same time to fill you in. So for those of you who've never been to this channel before, my name is Cosmic Retriever. I am a wolf therianthrope and currently questioning whether or not I'm a werewolf. If you don't like Therians or other kin, this is not the video for you. Click off if you want to. But for those of you who are either Therians or just interested in animated animal movies, you have come to the right place. I have 6 films I'm going to talk about here, and the first one is one that we all know, The Lion King. And it's loosely based off of William Shakespeare's Hamlet. There's a king, there's a prince in line for the throne, there's a jealous uncle who kills the king and exiles the prince. The prince then grows up, comes back, and takes his rightful place of rule as the ruler. And I think I can speak for us all when we say that Mufasa's death was really traumatizing as children, and some of us, I think, still aren't really over it. They're actually making a new Lion King prequel film about Mufasa, but I don't really consider the live-action movies to be canon. Only the Lion King movies and the Lion Guard series and the books are not officially canon, but I still consider them to be semi-canon. I know there are no dogs in this movie, but this was just one of those movies that I would watch obsessively over and over again because I really relate to the main character of Simba and my struggles. I relate to it on a spiritual and metaphorical level, so that's why I thought I would add it here. The storyline's really great, and if I'm being honest, I don't even know why they bothered to make a live-action remake, because, I mean, just looking at the style, they're never as good as the original. I mean, as compared to these, they just feel more real, even if they're animated, and it just feels better watching this version. It wasn't something that really needed touching upon. The Lion King was a gem of its own. It was released in 1994, and the Lion Guard series, which is available on Disney Plus and Disney Junior, is a spin-off series about Simba's second cub, Kion, and it started airing in 2015, late 2015, early 2016. I think 2016. But yeah, that's pretty much it for The Lion King, but I had to go with this first because it's one of my favorite movies, and I'm actually going to be saving the best for last, the movie that I watched over and over again, and I mean that literally on a loop, and whenever it's on the TV guide, I will still watch it today, regardless of when it's on, but I'm going to save that for last, like I said. Next film we're going to be talking about is Ratatouille. Ratatouille was a movie that came out in 2007 when I was about 8 years old, and I remember I connected so much with the main character, even though he was a rat. I had figurines of the toys. I had like these 3 Ratatouille toys. One was Remy, one was Emile, and one was the leader of the rat clan, Django. And Ratatouille is just up there as one of the great films, and it's one of those films that I still watch whenever it's on, like the last one I'm going to talk about. I went through a phase where I thought I was a rat, or not even a rat, but just like a rodent, and something else I'd like to point out about this movie is not only how underrated it is compared to today's standards at least, but also the fact that a few of these movies contain spoilers here, but a few of these movies contain captive characters, such as Ratatouille, Finding Nemo, The Lion King, Zazu, Nemo, and Remy in their respective films. Like there's a scene, I'm sure we all remember the scene where Remy is trapped in the cage by Chef Skinner. But there, regardless of this film's success, there are two things that have always bothered me. It's kind of like the B movie situation where they're told you can never talk to humans, it's the number one rule. But Remy doesn't speak to humans at all. Not only do they speak English in France for some reason, probably because it was made in America, but Remy actually can't physically talk to humans. And we know this because in the scene where the elderly woman is trying to get them out of her house in the beginning, the rats are communicating. When Remy and Emile are talking, we then transition to the lady's perspective and it's just squeaking. So that answers that question as to why they don't speak to the humans. But I wish they had touched more upon that. And then the second one was whatever happened to Remy's mother and what led to him having such an advanced sense of smell. I don't know. It's a good movie for sure. I used to quote it and say, "We are what we are. We're rats." I was a weird kid, but that's one thing that has always sort of stuck with me, like why Remy's dad was so against humans because they poison and kill rats. We all remember that one scene in that movie where the rats are literally shown hanging in the windowsill. But I feel like we could have gotten more backstory on this movie. But it is an underrated film, I would say, and it tackles some serious issues about cooking. It's inspirational with wanting to be a chef, and it tackles the issue about how they treat rats, basically, and different people. Next film franchise we've all heard of, Ice Age. There are currently 5 films. There are a couple of spin-off series, but I only watched the films, and I'd say this one is one of the more flawed ones. Let me just say I love the original, and I used to watch it with my neighbor all the time. We used to just like laugh at the screen and stuff. And I even had a book that was based off of this on like Kindle. It was sort of like a Kindle app. But the thing that ranks this one a little lower for me is the fact that they made multiple sequels. The side characters were really irritating. Buck the Weasel, you had the 2 possum brothers, and the mammoth who thought she was a possum, which wasn't really that good. Like, they were more side characters than they were main characters, and you could sort of feel throughout the trilogy that the writers were running out of ideas, and they kept on introducing new characters in additions to the ones we already knew from the first movie. So that's why this one's a little... I'm not saying it's a bad movie, it's just... It was released in 2002, the first one. The second one was released in 2006. The third one, I think, was released around 2008 or 9. The fourth one was released in 2012, I believe. And then the fifth one came out in 2016. And it's just, I'm saying these off the top of my head, so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. It's just, this would have been better as a one series, a one trilogy, instead of a trilogy, like a one movie. I sort of agree with the people who think that. High-key agree, actually. The next movie we're going to be talking about was also released in 2003, like Finding Nemo. Brother Bear. Oh my god, this movie is so underrated. And yes, there are spoilers here, so just keeping that in mind. But yeah, this movie, I remember the first time I watched it, I was being babysat by my sister's friend, And I was saying, like, oh, they're so mean to the bears. And she was like, yeah, I know. We see Kenai, who's transformed physically into an animal. And that was one thing that always stuck with me as a Therian, because let's be honest, what Therianthrope has never ever wanted to shift into their physical form, even though we know it's impossible and biology does not allow for it. But basically, to sum up, the main character is Kenai, who's voiced by Joaquin Phoenix in the first film. After his bear is killed by a brother, he goes to kill the bear in revenge, and then he's transformed into a bear by the spirits, and he befriends Coda, a bear cub, on his way to the salmon run, and they form a brotherly bond, like the little brother he never had because Kenai was the youngest of his brothers. And then eventually he learns that the bear from the film, from earlier on in the film, was actually Coda's mother. And they have to work through their differences, and Kenai struggles to find forgiveness. In the end, Coda forgives him, and they go to the salmon run together. But when I say it's underrated, people all over YouTube agree with me. It really is an underrated masterpiece, an underrated gem at that. Phil Collins' musical scores, from the musical scores by Phil Collins to the animation styles to the plot of the movie itself, it's very sad that it doesn't get the recognition it deserves. But yeah, if you want to check out that movie, it's also streaming on Paramount Plus. Alright, this video is getting a little long, so I'm trying to speed it up. Balto. Before you ask, I read about Balto in school. He was a purebred husky, but in Animation Universal Studios, they made him a wolf dog, and I thought it would be fitting to mention him because I am a wolf dog. That's my stereotype, so I've seen this movie and the second movie, and they're just really good films. I think I like the second movie a little better because it's kind of like Simba's Pride, where it explores Balto's family a little more. But the message is a really good one. Balto is different, and he's shunned by his community for being part domestic dog and part wolf. And when a diphtheria outbreak, just like in the books, hits a town full of children who are sick, he volunteers to take the medicine through the Alaskan wilderness to them. And it's one of those inspirational movies that proves just because you're different, it shows just because you're different, that doesn't mean that you can't do what everyone else can do. It literally shows, there's a line in the movie, and I quote, "Since when do you need a pedigree to help someone?" And it's just a really good movie. And it's a great movie for wolf therians, wolf dog therians, werewolves even. And it's got a real good feel to it. And last but not least, I've saved the best for last, we have Finding Nemo. Finding Nemo, I would watch obsessively. And when I say obsessively, I mean it. Every time I was on vacation, every time I was at home, before bed, before and after school, like, I don't know, anything that I could think of. Oh, and Monsters, Inc. was another one that I watched, but I'm not really going to include it here. It's more of an honorable mention, which came out in 2001. And Finding Nemo was released 2 years later in 2003. There's actually a Nemo toy in Boo's room. But Monsters, Inc. is actually what inspired me to write fan fiction. My very first fan fiction was actually set in an anime world, but it was inspired by Monsters, Inc., by the plot, and it was Dragon Ball Z based. But Finding Nemo is special to me because I literally can't remember the first time I watched this movie, but I just remember I was obsessed with it. I watched Finding Dory, and I was disappointed, to say the least, because apparently not only are they going to make a live action one, but I just felt like it didn't really hold up to the original, because the original was so good, and it's my guilty pleasure film, or whatever you want to call it. But I decided to save it for the last because the reason I love it so much was because it inspired me to use my imagination. I literally would pretend that the slide at my elementary school was the toilet from the climax scene where Nemo, everyone thinks he's dead, and then he shows up alive, and the just keeps swimming. Like, it's such a wholesome movie. Like, you can't really beat it. You can't really get better than Finding Nemo. It's just amazing. Alright guys, I'm just going to wrap up this video because I'm currently at 15 minutes and 16 seconds, so if you managed to watch this whole video, I'm really surprised, and let me know how many of these films you've seen in the comment section down below, and if you want any more theory and related content. Cosmic, thanks for watching. Cosmic out.